Bunch of fans taking a little break right here. 3, 2, 1. Breakfast with Bob and Paul and
Pete.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Poncho Man.
Nice job.
No, Poncho Man has been replaced by the 2012 Ironman World Champion, Pete Jacobs, bringing us in the king of the ukulele, the king of the island. We again are brought to you by Monster Ice Sport, the Athlete's Headphones. We're at Huggos. We're live on triathlete.com. And our next guest, the 2012 Ironman World Champion, Mr. Pete Jacobs, who just replaced Poncho Man. He's going to be racing and playing the ukulele. I love that. How you doing, Pete?
Very well, thank you, Bob. Great to be back here on the Big Island with you guys again. It's very relaxing.
Is it relaxing being defending champion?
Absolutely, very relaxing to be back here, even as defending champ. And as you know, it's a great position to be in.
Yes,
I'm very happy to be in. With these expectations and being watched by people. It's, I'm enjoying every minute of it, and I just love being back here on the Big Island. I can leave all the worries at home of other emails, and I'm here. I've got everything I need. Everything's done. I don't need to do anything.
How much more time have you had to spend with media responsibilities like this and or any of the other stuff that you're doing? I mean, it must be a lot more than it was last year, yeah?
You know what? This year it's actually the same or less than last year. It's wow. I haven't had as many requests for interviews and things like that this year, so it's actually pretty funny. I'm actually just the same as last year.
So people figure you were one and done, and you're not going to be a factor? Or?
I figure the American magazines and that are trying to focus on their American athletes now while they can kind of talk them up, and then after the race, that's when they'll come and chat to me again.
So basically you're saying, Mr. McCormick, that the Americans will never be a factor again. Nice, I like that.
Yeah.
So since you've become Ironman World Champion, how's it changed your life?
It's been incredible. It's changed, Jamie's and my life for the better. We're able to buy a house, move up to Noosa and go, right, this is working out for us. Gave Jamie a lot more work for her this year.
Yeah.
She's been working her butt off, just managing communications and all of that stuff, which, there's no way I just can't do that stuff well. I couldn't be world champion without her. I wouldn't know where to start. I'm terrible at getting back to people and organising things. I just like to train and not worry about the other stuff.
They just tell you where to be.
Exactly.
How has it impacted the races that you did early in the year? I mean, obviously, you know how to prepare. You know where your season's going. It's going to end up in Kona. How does being the world champion on the starting line of all these other events change your feeling about the race and change everyone else's feeling? You're the Ironman champion. They expect you to win. You're going to be winning, right? It doesn't matter if it's a sprint, Olympic, half, whatever.
Yeah, at the start of the year, I did feel that's kind of what I was thinking. But sure enough, by the time I've built up, raced Alcatraz, had an injury after Alcatraz, and that pretty much put me out of action for 6 weeks, and I had to change all my goals and all my expectations for the year. And I think that worked out really well. I learned a lot from realizing that I can't do media, training, sponsor commitments, and a race all in the same trip. That I need to separate those, really clearly. And I train best when I'm at home. So, I need to stay at home when I'm training, and when I need to go and do the sponsors stuff and that, I'll travel for that. But just not do it all at once. And then other than that, it was once I got over the injury, it was very much like, I'm racing after 6-7 weeks of coming back, and then again and then again. So it's just one long build-up for Hawaii. That's all I've been able to fit in this year.
So he says it's a good thing, but I'm sure during that 6-week period, you're not going, this is so great, I'm injured. Look what I'm learning here.
At the time, it wasn't like an injury. It was just tightness that I just couldn't get rid of in my right hip. And it took a while to figure out how to release it. But luckily, it's been an amazing journey. The people that I've met since having had that injury, how I fixed it, and the people that I've met, and they've continued on and become part of our team. That it's, I'm really pleased that injury happened now. But at the time, I had to just keep my emotions and those thoughts in check. There's no point worrying about something that you don't even know. There's no point thinking, hang on, what if I can't race or run for another 6 weeks or another 6 weeks? You can't even waste your time and energy thinking like that. So I was in check.
the year before you had the same thing, right?
Yeah,
you
and
had
the
a winner,
year before.
and the year before,
yeah.
and the year before. So you're sort of a slow learner when it comes to
I always overdo it early in the year, and then I realise, oh, hang on, that's right. That's how I did well last year.
This is in October. Oh yeah, I should Alcatraz. That was a nice warm swim, huh?
Yeah, and I feel the cold. So
You have no body fat.
the thing is, I really feel the cold. So I was nervous for that race more than I haven't been nervous for a race in a long time. But you don't even feel the water before the gun goes.
You have to jump off a boat.
Off the boat and in you go. But because I was so nervous and because I'm a bit older and a bit wiser and I knew that preparing for Hawaii worked really well for me in 2012, I prepared properly for Alcatraz. So I had leggings and I had long compression socks and I had a speed suit, I had my race suit, I had another shirt, a compression shirt, and then, I had the booties as well, and I had Vaseline everywhere. I had 2 caps and the hood. I was the warmest person in the race. And I finished the race, and other guys are like, man, I just couldn't get going until about, the end of the bike ride, and then I started to feel okay for the run because I was just so cold. And I was like, but you knew it was going to be 10 degrees. It wasn't like it was a surprise.
Right. It's like, oh my God, wait a second. The race is supposed to be in Hawaii and they're moving it to Alcatraz?
I didn't pack booties for that. I thought it was going to be warm. So the funny thing is, I was the only guy in the race that had socks and booties on.
Yes.
And leggings and everything else.
Right.
I just couldn't. I don't know what they were thinking.
They were thinking that it takes too much time.
Yeah, they'll be right. It'll be right. Which would have been me.
Yeah.
Anything else, I would have been like that. But with the cold, I wasn't taking any chances. And if I was younger, I would have been. It'll be right. She'll be right. That's the kind of the attitude I grew up with. But eventually, I started to change, and that earned me the title. Yeah.
Now, was it hard because you're going into those races early in the season? You're the Ironman champion. You're the defending. People are expecting you to win. Right, you're coming to races early, and you aren't. You know that it's a build-up. But I'm sure when you're going to other races, they're going.
Everyone else is going. You got a big S on your chest. Right?
You're supposed to just. Hey, what's the big deal? This is shorter than that Ironman thing. You should be winning this.
Yeah, I think some people might have, but it's just. I guess
it's just noise.
Yeah, it is. It's just noise.
Yeah.
And the only expectations that I need to reach are my own. Yeah. And they're the only ones that I'm worried about. And some people sort of say, oh, what happened there? And it's like, oh, well, I
training through that.
Did what I knew I was going to do. I knew I hadn't done the mileage on the run. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you that's how it was. That's what I did. So, I don't need to. I'm very confident in what I've done and how I've prepared for each race.
Yeah.
And I pretty much know how each race is going to go beforehand. And, this is the one race where I know that there's no excuses. If I have a shocker on Saturday and have to walk half the run, there's no excuses. Something went wrong on race day.
So we've been talking obviously to a lot of your competitors and a lot of other folks, and we look at the women's race and we go, pretty wide open. There's no dominant one single athlete. There's not a Chrissy Wellington who everyone's looking to, and then you have everyone else. It's probably a half dozen women that you're looking at right now. On the men's side, however, you have made this sort of like, oh, okay, you got Pete Jacobs.
Yes.
And then, there is Frederick Van Leer. There's Andreas Raylor. There's Sebastian Kienle. There's all these other guys. But you are, in 1 year, and I realize you've done 27 of these things, but in a couple of years, you've become sort of the guy. Do you feel that? Do you feel that level of expectation here? And we've just talked about all these other races and the reality of that, but here,
different game.
Different game. And to me, you are the guy.
Oh, thank you. Nice to hear that from a couple of Americans. I think it depends what country you're in as to who they're spruiking is going to be the champ and who's the highest ranked. I know in Europe, someone told me the other day that I was ranked about 5th.
Really?
There's 4 other Europeans ahead of me. Yeah. But no, look, it's not. I don't feel that as expectations when people think, oh, I think Pete will win. If I hear that, I'm like, well, they're confident in me, and I'm confident in me too. I see it as confidence, and it's great to have that on board. And I guess I take confidence from what other people say, and when it's a guy like Chris McCormack, and besides your podcast,
of course,
I've listened to a couple of Chris's as well, and he's spoken about me a few times, and And he has said in the last 2 years, Pete is the best performing athlete on the island. He's got
question.
first and second. So in 24 months, you know.
Well, and before that, he ran his way up from 5,000th to with a 241.03 or whatever it was.
And I thought he had a great comment today, and it's absolutely true. Is your run last year, he was jogging. And you were. I mean, it really looked like that. I mean, you weren't pushed. God help anybody who happened to have gotten within, you know,
the same zip
a
code?
shoulder of you. It would have been.
Yeah, I walked a few aid stations and took my time in the last sort of half marathon, and just made sure I held that 5 minutes. And it's nice when you hear things like that from a guy like Chris.
Yeah.
So you just won the first ever Sunshine Coast Ironman 70.3, and you hadn't run a race since Kona, right? That was the first race you run since Kona. But when you 22:59, 2:01 for the bike, and 1:13, and I think your run split was like 6-7 minutes faster than anybody else out there. So, I mean, that's going some. That has to give you a lot of confidence, because really everything else beforehand is just noise. Yeah. It's the last month leading in. What have you done? How ready are you? The other day, we were talking to Sebastian Kienle, and he said, yeah, Pete and I sort of have a little bit in common, because both of us, in the middle of the season, we were not doing great. And people were starting to think, oh, are they going to be a factor? And then it really is that last month.
Yeah, definitely. Philippines 70.3 I've raced every year, and I've won it 3 years in a row. And this year I just had nothing on the bike there, and ended up finishing second. And then so from that point, it was really like, okay, what's happening? I need to make sure my bike's building.
Right.
I really need to build my bike. And from that point, that's when I started doing my long bike rides, and that's what makes the difference for me. Long hilly rides, solo, just go by feel. If I feel good, I go hard, and that's when things really start to change for me for the season. But you can't do those all year round. You can't do 2 or 3 a week of 5-hour rides.
Don't tell the rest of the people on this island.
So there's a big difference that happens in August, September. It's a huge change from doing those sort of sessions.
Right.
And so when I went into the Sunny Coast 70.3, I knew that my bike had got up to a point that if I felt good on the day, without a full taper and all of that stuff, but if I felt okay on the day, I should be riding as good as anyone else in the world, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
Sebastian wasn't there. So I rode really well. I felt solid. I didn't have my wattage recording on the day, but the other guy, Clayton Fattel, that was with us, said we were riding, sort of in the 330s, averaged.
Yeah.
And I felt pretty comfortable, and then ran well off the bike. So it's not so much about the times or the wattage, it's more about how it felt. And to me, I knew I was going fast. I knew that I had good power. I knew that I was where I wanted to be at that point, and I got off and I eased into the run, and I'm sure I think I've negative split every run that I've done in the half Ironmans in the 70.3s all year.
Yeah.
Because I've just eased into them because of that injury. I've got off in the race a little bit back, and I just kind of like, well, we'll just see what happens, and I've eased into these runs, and that's been great practice for here. That's pretty much every time I get off and run, I'm like, this is how I'm going to feel when I get off the bike in Hawaii. I need to just get in that headspace where it's just out for a Sunday jog for the first, hopefully the whole way, but build it.
At least 15 miles.
But try and build the run. Really don't start out flat out, and just build into it. So, that's how I'm going to try and race on Saturday.
One of the reasons I think we think Ironman is what it is because of the history of the race. And you look at the athletes that have won this race, one of the names that comes to mind when we look at someone like you who didn't really feature all year. Yeah, you just won recently, but everyone's sitting there going, oh, well, you know what, flash in the pan, he's done. Dave Scott.
Dave Scott, every year.
And I hate to bring up a guy who's won it 6 times when you've just only won it once. But do you feel any parallels to any of the athletes in the past? And obviously, Australia's featured fairly heavily here. You seem like a pretty unique individual, but you seem like one of those guys that when October rolls around, it's on.
Yeah. Look, a part of it has been a bit of chance, getting those injuries early in the year. That has just, for 4 years, it has just built my season to this point. I think, Dave Scott, Mr. October, he got it right here all the time. But the guy that succeeded after him was, Mark Allen. I actually feel I've got a lot in common with Mark Allen. And I had a good chat with Mark yesterday, actually. And for the first time I've ever sat down and been able to ask him some questions. And you know, the similarities are incredible. And I sort of said, how were you approaching this mentally, and how would you train, and what do you think helped you from overtraining and all of those things? That because that's where I'm at. You know, I'm a athlete who trains by feel, and I need balance in my life and all of that. And there was a lot of similarities there between myself and Mark that I think you know, really was really interesting stuff that I didn't know. And I think some of the stuff that I was telling him that I did and why I was doing it, he actually would then say, look, yeah, I guess I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing, but every year that I did well, actually, I was doing sort of what you're doing as well.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of time between the two of us.
Yes.
But I think what Mark was doing back then he was the last guy to do it, and you know, I'm trying to start the revolution and get people back to, you know, training within their capabilities, within their limits, and not overreaching.
What's interesting is how you seem to learn every year from the race. You know, 2 years ago when Crowe got a little bit of a break on a bike, and you realized I didn't react. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. And then changing that, because the philosophy had been, you don't do any work on the bike. You want to sit in and let everybody else do the work. But here you are at the front of the pack, right? Because, and it's a great point, and other people are thinking about it now. If I'm at the front, I can't get in a drafting situation, and I can't, all I have to do is put my head down and go. It takes a lot of the mental, I don't have to think as much if I'm at the front, right? So the little things, the little changes you've made have really helped put you in a position you're in, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's a big point that I took from a chat with Mark was the less you can think on race day, the more energy you're saving. Right. So you want to just be like an animal and just physically just move without thought, without worrying about wattage or cadence, and just go by feel and go when it feels good. Don't think about how far you're into the race or how far you have to go or who's around you and when they're going to attack. And you just do what you do, and you just are in your own space, and your mind is quiet. And that's how Mark explained it. You know, you need your mind to be quiet. And I was like, that's exactly what I've learned over the last 6 months off someone else, is how I've been practicing how just to be quiet and let the body just do what it can do when you don't try and control it.
Huddle lived with Mark Allen for a while.
What's the rest of your week like in terms of that? I was going to say, because I know Mark's week here was basically spent like a hermit. I mean, he was all about energy and giving and receiving energy, and especially in the last couple of days, I mean, he literally, no one could really get to him, talk to him, hang out with him. He was basically just gathering himself for what he knew was coming on Saturday. You seem a little more gregarious, a little more, you know, open to talking and sharing and everything.
And gathering energy.
Do you get like that? Do you get like that, like Mark did, or are you more the other way, like Bob said? You're gathering energy from people who you talk to.
I'm both.
Yeah.
Like I love the stuff that's scheduled and it's this and it's great, and I love, you know, swapping energy with everybody. But then when I've got time to myself, I'm in my unit and I'm home alone pretty much, and Jamie comes and goes and she does her own thing. But I'll just sit there and I'll have quiet time or a nap every day, and quite a lot of quiet time as well. So I'm on or I'm off. You know, I'm kind of extrovert, or I like to be very private and keep other things to myself as well. So that's I guess how I've always been, but I've only sort of realized that I am. You can be both. Yeah. And that's I think that's what I am.
When you've done, is it 27 Ironman now? 25?
Yeah,
26?
about that, 26 or something.
And you're 29? Or did you turn
31 now.
31.
Yeah.
Still a young
So you're
punk.
still a young guy, but a lot of guys who've done 25, 26, 27 Ironmans, they're just, you know from looking in their eyes that they don't want to go there again, right? Because they know how awful it is. But you seem like this is still fresh, because you've spread it out. You started when you were 21. You've been doing it a long time, and you keep learning from it. And it seems like you still love the process.
Yeah, I feel it's funny. This year, I feel a lot more like I was, how I felt going into my first Ironman. As an age group competitor, I was doing my landscape apprenticeship, labouring 8 hours a day. I'd train before work, after work, just whatever I felt like doing. You know, I was just riding hills around where I lived, and I went into the race thinking, look, I think this is about how well I can go. And I nailed my splits exactly for the swim,
Wow.
bike, and run. Add 3 minutes, I did 9:33 overall, and my goal was 9.5. So add transitions in, and I feel like that this year. I feel in my training I've been completely plan free. I haven't had any schedule, any plan of what I wanted to do. You know, up here I'm like, I know what I kind of want to do this week. I know I want to get X amount of long rides and a strength work and a couple of gyms, and look, I'd like to get this many Ks in the pool. Rough plan, but if it didn't happen and didn't go to plan, it wouldn't matter, and I'd change the plan as the days went. And so train very much by feel, and this is the first year I've gone so far by feel. Like last year I had a run program still that I followed. This year nothing. So even my runs have been jogs, and sometimes they're jogs with Jamie and the local tri club, because it's just like, oh, I don't know what I'll do this morning. I'll come for a jog with you guys, and turns out they're going to do 6 1Kers, and so I did that, and that's actually been my only run interval session that I've done this whole prep. Yet I'm running in the half, in the 70.3s.
Yeah.
I'm running as fast as I've ever run off the bike, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I've focused on strength work on the bike and the gym. So I've come here with the mentality that it's not about fitness, it's about strength and endurance. So I haven't worked on any threshold and trying to get fitter. None of that stuff that really just stresses the body and fatigues it.
And burns you out at the end of the day.
So I'm here with I feel like I did going into my first Ironman, and that was the best I've ever felt in a race, where I felt good from the start to the finish. I didn't fall apart, and I've said it over the last several years that's been my best race by feel, and the fact that I'm kind of in the same mind that I was for that first race, I'm hoping that the similar things kind of can happen.
So you're the Hawaii Ironman world champion. A lot of athletes, when they get to that point and they've done as many races as you've done, will find themselves in the race, maybe doing well again, maybe leading even. Now you're on the run, and they start to think of other things like, you know what, I'm going sub 240 today. I'm gonna you know what, I've won this thing. Let's see what the next thing I can do here is.
Sub 8 would be good.
Where else can I immortalize myself, right? So do you think, I mean, it sounds like you don't. You're talking about feel and all the no intervals, no structure, none of this stuff. It sounds like time doesn't even come into it. You're just going to go by feel and, probably find yourself somewhere at the front, and what's going to happen is going to happen. But does that ever, if you're out there 5 minutes in front of everybody and you're 10K to go and you have a shot at whatever, sub 8, sub 240, are you going to go, you know what, I want to throw this thing down and do something no one's ever done?
Yeah, I definitely would. I don't think there'd be many people who wouldn't. And that's kind of where I want to be in a position for that. I want to build into my run so that at the end of the run, I'm just starting to get into the race with 10K to go and can kind of go, all right, let's build this last 10K and see what happens. So, I would definitely go for it, and we'll see what good conditions provide. But I'm feeling like I know I'm a lot stronger on the bike, like no question. And so we'll just see what everyone else does on the day. I can just look after myself, and if someone else beats me, but I feel I've had an amazing day, and by feel I've felt great all day, I'd still be content if someone else had a better day. If someone else just ended up going faster, but I was still happy with what I'd produced on the day.
So last year when you did the Noosa race, after winning your first title, you're sitting at a table with Chris McCormick and Craig Alexander, and some age grouper comes by and wants a photo, right? But he wants the photo with Crowe and Macca, and gave you the camera to take the photo, right? Now this next year he might get somebody else to take the photo, because you weren't in that photo because you only have one win. Yeah. You don't have 3 or 2.
Yeah, I think Craig and Chris had a couple. We'd all had a couple. The one time I almost never drink, but
almost.
Yeah, the
season's over
after it. Yeah,
come on, you're Australian.
So and Craig says, "Sorry, Pete, you've got to have won more than one to get in this photo." And he was just spot on. And the other thing about that same time, and sort of saying, "Oh, when does it sink in?" And then Craig says, "After you've won 3." I was like, "Oh, thanks, mate." All right, because it doesn't sink in, and people most people do recognise you, and it does elevate you to a different level of notoriety. But at the same time, you're still just a regular guy, and it's
still
hard
to take the trash out.
Yeah, it's hard to realise that you were the best in the world, on planet Earth, and you kind of go, wow, there's a lot of people here, and
I was the best.
Yeah, so on that one day, but I'll take it.
And we have another one coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if we can do it once.
So
again.
if you do happen to win your second, you're not going to big time us. You'll come here Sunday morning and chat with us.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'll be here to gloat about it.
Our guest has been the 2012 Ironman World Champion, Mr. Pete Jacobs. This is Breakfast with Bob and Paul. We are brought to you by Monster iSport, the athlete's headphone. Of course, we're beautiful Huggos, and we're live on triathlete.com. And we have a studio audience. Let's hear it for you guys. There we go. Yeah. And back to you. I don't know. You're about to get passed by Mr. Pete Jacobs, but...
If it's okay, I think I would.
You want to do this? Oh.
You want him to take us out?
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Have Pete take us out.
I think he could be the first Ironman triathlete ukulele player.
There we go.
Can you take us out, Pete? Is that cool?
Cool.
All right, yeah.
Pete Man, rather than Poncho Man, taking us out.
Good night, people. See you guys next year. Breakfast with Bob, Paul, and Pete. Aloha, I gotta go.